If the president really wants to do something for Homeland Security, for this country, let him help to fight the war at home. This week, Mr. President, we will soon be passing another CR. And time again, the President's Attorney General and his Director of Homeland Security have put the nation on notice that there is an imminent threat of another terrorist attack to our homeland. And from time to time, they have even identified the most likely targets, such as our nuclear power plants, our transportation infrastructure, our nation's monuments, our embassies. They have told our citizens to be vigilant about this imminent risk. What has the President done to respond to this imminent risk of terrorist attack on our nation's shores? The President has proposed to create a new bureaucracy. He has proposed to move boxes around on an organizational flowchart. He has proposed to create the second largest domestic agency in the history of the Republic. Even the President recognizes that actually creating the new Department of Homeland Security will take at least 1 year. I'll tell you, my friends, if I ever saw a good lawyer, he sits right here on the back row right now. That senator from Tennessee, Fred Thompson. Why do I say that? Because he made the most rousing defense of this sorry resolution that's before the Senate, and on which we will soon vote. The most rousing defense of it, and yet he's against it. He's against it. Now that's what I call a good lawyer. Makes a rousing defense of this thing which he hates. Even the President recognizes that actually creating the new Department of Homeland Security will take at least 1 year. The GAO has said that it will take at least 5 to 10 years for a new department to be effective. So while our citizens are facing this imminent risk, under the President's proposal, the agencies responsible for securing our borders, such as the Customs Service, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and the Coast Guard, will spend the next year or more figuring out whom they work for, whom they work with. Instead of focusing on their mission, our border agencies and inspectors will be wondering whether their units will be reorganized or transferred to new locations, and they will be wondering where their phones are, where their computers are, whether their jobs are going to be eliminated. And what will be happening in the meantime? We'll be keeping the store to watch the terrorists. Reorganizing our bureaucracy will not improve our nation's immediate capacity to deter or respond to the imminent threat of a terrorist attack. Since September 11, the Senate Appropriations Committee has focused on providing immediate resources to federal, state, and local agencies and first responders in order to improve our capacity to respond to this evolving threat. On September 14, 2001, just 3 days after the horrific attacks on September 11, Congress approved $40 billion. $40 billion. That's $40 for every day since Jesus Christ was born. Congress approved $40 billion, including to respond to chemical or biological weapons attacks, to state and local governments to train and equip our law enforcement and fire personnel to respond to attacks, for HHS to purchase smallpox vaccine, for USDA and FDA to protect our food safety, to the Postal Service to purchase equipment that can protect the mail? Where you been, Mr. President? That's what Congress did. That's what we did. For the FAA to secure cockpits and to improve the security of our airports, to the Department of Transportation for port security, to the Energy Department to help secure our nuclear facilities, and to Customs and INS for additional border security inspectors and agencies, and for improved training and equipment. Hear me! To listen to the President, he's the only man, he's the only person been doing anything, or thinking anything about Homeland Security. Here's the great Congress of the United States that's been providing money for the defense of our country. Despite objections from the White House, Congress was able to increase funding for Homeland Security programs by $3.9 billion. Where have you been, Mr. President? You want to do something? Do something here at home. On November 14, 2001, Senate Democrats supported the inclusion of $15 billion for Homeland Security in an economic stimulus package, including $4 billion for bioterrorism and food safety. Get that? $4.6 billion for law enforcement and responsive initiatives. Get that? $3.2 billion for transportation security. Get that? And $3 billion for other Homeland Security programs, including mail screening and protection for nuclear plants and labs, water projects, and other facilities. Where have you been, Mr. Commander-in-Chief? Out on the campaign trail? Raising monies for the campaign? This is what Congress has been doing. On November 14, 2001, the White House strongly objected to the amendment, asserting that existing funding was, quote, more than adequate to meet foreseeable needs, close quote. Now, who's fighting for Homeland Security? Under pressure from the White House, Senate Republicans objecting to the emergency designation for the Homeland Security funding raised the Budget Act point of order. Efforts to waive the budget point of order failed. On December 4th, 2001, the Senate Appropriations Committee reported out by a vote of 29-0 the Defense Appropriations Bill for fiscal year 2002. In addition to the $20 billion appropriated on September 14, the bill would have provided $7.5 billion in additional Homeland Security funds, including $3.9 billion for bioterrorism and food safety, $1.3 billion for anti-terrorism law enforcement, $1.43 billion for security of mail and nuclear facilities, and $879 million for transportation and border security. The bill would also have provided an additional $7.5 billion to FEMA's disaster relief account for activities and assistance related to 9/11. On December 5, 2001, in a meeting with congressional leaders, President Bush threatened to veto the Defense Appropriation Bill because of funding, quote, that is not needed at this time. On December 6, 2001, Senate Republicans objected to the emergency designation for the Homeland Security funding in the Defense Appropriation Bill and raised the Budget Act point of order. Efforts to waive the budget point of order failed. On December 7, 2001, after negotiations with Senate Republicans, Homeland Security programs were reduced by over $3.6 billion. The Senate then passed the Defense Appropriations Bill. In April and May of 2002, the Senate Appropriations Committee held 5 bipartisan hearings, led and conducted by Senator Ted Stevens and me, concerning the defense of our homeland. Senator Stevens and I and others on that committee, Republicans and Democrats, heard from governors and we heard from mayors. We heard from firemen, we heard from law enforcement and emergency medical personnel. We heard from specialists in the field of counterterrorism. And based on those hearings, the Committee on Appropriations in the Senate produced a bipartisan supplemental appropriations bill to continue our effort to provide immediate resources to improve our nation's capacity to deter and respond to terrorist attacks.